Hello and welcome to the Deep in Sports News. I'm your host, William Statler, and in today's episode, we're going to look at the NFC and AFC South in preseason week 2. Starting out, all Giants quarterbacks were precise as ever, with each completing at least 69% of their passes, totaling 2 touchdown passes, and a win for the G-Men over Carolina, 21-19. For the Falcons, after Desmond Ridder's rocky but impressive first drive, Logan Woodside would go 3 for 53 on the final drive, allowing kicker Younghoe Koo to hit the game-tying kick. Falcons-Bengals 13 apiece, your final. Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles got revenge over his former team as quarterback Kyle Trask led the only touchdown drive of the game. And yet, Baker Mayfield seems ever so closer to the starting job. 13-6 Bucks over the Jets. And lastly, for the NFC South, the Saints defeated the Chargers, despite Chargers backup quarterback Easton Stick trying to play hero ball with a sensational 4th and 23 throw to Tyrell Bynum. He'd be picked off on a later 4th down to seal a W for the Bayou. Now moving on to the AFC South. Jacksonville handed Detroit their first loss of the preseason, as with 2 fine performances from quarterbacks Nathan Rourke and C.J. Beathard, a couple of scores from running back Dearness Johnson, and a few kicks from Brandon McManus, you've got a final of 25-7 Jaguars. Despite starting the scoring in their game, Indy would fall behind 17-7 to the Bears early in the 4th. But thanks to Sam Ehlinger's scramble score, Jake Funk's rushing TD, and Matt Gay's 35-yarder, they'd send Chi-Town packing with a loss, 24-17 Colts. Similarly, Tennessee went up 7-0 over the Vikings, but kicker Greg Joseph hit 3 field goals in the second alone to put Minnesota up by 2 at the half. Luckily for the Titans, in a full-on Malik Willis quarterback game, he would lead them to multiple scoring drives with not just his arms, but legs as well. Titans hung on to win this one, 24-16. In Houston, both Davis Mills and C.J. Stroud had decent games at quarterback. They just weren't enough, as after a Raheem Mostert touchdown run to start the scoring, Finn's backup, Skylar Thompson, would throw 3 more for the blowout win, 28-3 Miami over the Texans. Now we're going to move on to the weather, and for that I'm going to go to my forecaster.
Thanks, William. Today we're doing something a little bit different, as for now, instead of just talking about the general weather in our certain area, we're instead talking about California and their problems with Hurricane Hillary. This is a very scary situation. It's something that we thought we'd bring attention to, as just as this article says right here, we're not built for this. It's really tough. A place that doesn't really expect all this kind of flooding and rains and storms like this. And we're just really giving our prayers out for everyone, hoping they're safe in that general area, all across a lot of California, but LA, Burbank, Palm Springs, all of these different places and more are being heavily affected by this and will be for the following week. So we'll of course try to update you for the next episode, but for now we just hope that everyone is safe in that area and wherever else it may hit in the near future.
And that'll do it for us. I'm William Statner, and we're going to send you back to the Deep in Sports Podcast. Welcome to the Deep in Sports Podcast. I'm Chase Caridi, and today we are going to do my predictions for the AFC and NFC South, our weekly check-in on New York baseball, and of course end it off with the Wheel of Impressions. But without further ado, let's go on to our first topic. So starting off our predictions, I'm going with the AFC South, and in last place I have the Indianapolis Colts. Now the Colts, I have them going 6-11, just taking a look at their schedule here. They have a division that's not the hardest, definitely, but certainly for the situation they're in, having a rookie quarterback in Anthony Richardson, and your only other situations at quarterback being Sam Ehlinger and Gardner Minshew, it's kind of hard to see this team really rally the troops and get those easy wins from a Texans or a Titans. And besides that, Baltimore's a tough matchup early in the season, week 3. You've got Cleveland later after that. And just a lot of these teams are just frankly better. The Bengals are an incredibly tough matchup. Even the Patriots, they're all the way in Germany. Who knows how that's going to affect everybody playing that game. So I've got the Colts going 6-11, the last in the division, but that's really still not a horrible record. I think with 6 wins and some definitely close ones in here, you'll definitely see a lot coming out of this young team and their young new quarterback, Anthony Richardson. So I've got the Colts in fourth place going 6-11, and just a little bit better in third, I've got the Tennessee Titans. I know this is an interesting division. So 7-10 for the Tennessee Titans. It's going to be a rough start for them. They've got some really tough opponents early in the season, the Chargers, the Bengals, Baltimore. And like I said before, even their division is not the easiest that it's been in the past. And this team, frankly, hasn't gotten incredibly better. Of course, they won the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes, but who knows how he'll play. I don't think it'll be the Julio Jones on the Tennessee Titans situation. I think D Hop definitely has some more gas in the tank, at least more than Julio Jones did at that time. And besides that, it's kind of just the same situation we've looked at for the past couple of years. And ever since they made the AFC Championship in the 2019-2020 season, it's kind of only gone downhill. They haven't made it to that point since, and we've already seen the top of Derrick Henry's game reaching 2,000 yards a few seasons ago. I don't think he'll have this massive drop off, but certainly can't be something that Titans fans and the Titans organization can keep believing that he will take them to this promised land. I think a real reality check is coming for Nashville, and it's going to cause some real changes in this organization. Of course, they drafted Will Levis. They already had Malik Willis, so the quarterback situation is going to be very interesting to see if they are a losing team. You have to think maybe if they're not the most competitive in the beginning of the season, who they thrust into the starting position at quarterback. And beyond that, I don't think there's much more to say. I've got them going 7-10, third in the AFC South. And so in second place in the AFC South, I have the Houston Texans. Now, that is certainly a hot take. I can understand that. But I really do believe in what they've got going down there. It was very interesting to see the David Culley to Lovie Smith to now D'Amico Ryans' whole debacle after the Deshaun Watson situation, after losing J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins and even other nice players for the organization like Will Fuller, Whitney Merciless, and Zach Cunningham. Everything that kind of 2010s or late 2010s, early 2020s Texans were, it was getting torn apart by the second these past couple of, few seasons rather. And thankfully it worked out for them. Some poor trades kind of took a while for this rebuild to really hit something, but I think that there is some real promise with the team that is put in front of us now. The Houston Texans drafted both Will Anderson and CJ Stroud in this most recent draft, two of the top prospects in the draft. And of course, we have to see how they'll pan out. I don't think that they're going to be perfect as soon as the season starts, but I really do believe in D'Amico Ryans. And you look at all the work that he did with the San Francisco 49ers as coordinator there, and with so many people just not believing in what the Texans can bring to the table. I think there is a real chance for them to shock all of us and make it pretty far in this season. Of course, we've got them going 8-9, so still no playoffs, but it's again a situation like I've said before about these 8-9, 9-8 teams, where if a couple games change, a couple games go your way, you could rise all the way to a nice playoff spot, or you could completely crumple down. And especially for Houston, it's going to be very interesting to see. Taking a look at some of their games here, they have some not hard matchups here to start off their season. I mean, Indy is, I've said time and time again, a question mark. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not exactly there with the rest of the AFC North. And the other South, that we'll talk about soon, the other teams there, it's a pretty close race between both Souths. And, I mean, there are just some real good chances for the Houston Texans to get a good amount of wins, get around 500, and maybe could skyrocket into something that we never would have seen just a couple of seasons ago. I've got the Houston Texans second in the AFC South at 8-9. And in first place in the AFC South, I have, to no surprise, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars have really cemented themselves as a really strong team in not just their own division, but the AFC as a whole. They made a great comeback win against the Chargers just last season, and of course ran into the powerhouse of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs during the divisional round and got knocked out. But this team still has a lot of promise. Of course, this is the second year of Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence being together, and we saw how they were successful just last season. So, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to continue running with what they have and the success that came with it. Taking a look at their schedule, they have some good chances in the beginning of the season. They've got two straight London games in week 4 and 5, respectively. And besides that, they have a good amount of wins I see in the first half of the season and just able to stretch out the whole way. They do have some tough matchups like the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Bills, a lot of the top teams in the NFL, but a lot of good chances for them to come out with a record that by no means is, a top record in the AFC, but certainly one that'll get them a divisional title and will be able to give them a chance to get into the playoffs and hopefully get hot at the right time to really make some noise like they kind of did in just last season. So that's the AFC South. I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars winning at 10-7. So just to give a quick recap for the AFC South before we move on, I have the Indianapolis Colts at 6-11 in fourth place, the Tennessee Titans at 7-10 in third, the Houston Texans at 8-9 at 2, and the Jacksonville Jaguars at 10-7, winning the divisional title. Now we're going to move on to their counterpart, the NFC South. So now for the NFC South, again starting with last place, I have the Atlanta Falcons. I have them going 5-12. Definitely not great. This is going to be the first year of Desmond Ridder as the starter. Last year, of course, it was a little bit of him and Marcus Mariota, but Mariota definitely getting more of the snaps there. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this team works. It is young, there's not a lot of talent given to it, and for a lot of Arthur Smith, the head coach's tenure, it has been questions of whether or not he's already out the door. How legitimate do I think fans are in that sentiment, or need I say the organization? I don't think, for at least the first couple of seasons, I don't think it was that really threatening, but now we're getting to a point where this team has to really succeed, especially in a division that is kind of up for grabs. We'll get into the rest of it later, but for now, Atlanta, taking a look at their schedule, they do have some easy spots in the beginning of the season. I mean, we don't know what Green Bay is going to be. Of course, they have the Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their division as well. I think they'll split with those teams. But there is not an entire amount of just full-on wins for the whole season. There are still a lot of tough matchups throughout their season. There's not really a spot I can find where they get a stretch to really start getting on their feet and start running to the division title. I think there's just a lot of, unfortunately, tough opponents to come in right where it's possible for them to get a roll. So unfortunately, that constant battering back down that I see happening is putting them in a real poor position as last in the NFC South at 5-12. So now we go to third in the division, and I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-10. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, similarly to the Falcons, are dealing with a new quarterback situation. Of course, it's a very different quarterback situation than what's going on in Atlanta because they're losing arguably the greatest football player of all time in Tom Brady. The Buccaneers now have to deal with a quarterback room of Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield and also John Wolford, who unfortunately was injured in their just past preseason game. Nevertheless, it looks closer and closer for Baker Mayfield to be starting for that team, and we've seen Baker Mayfield lead the Browns to the playoffs just a few seasons ago, but just I don't think that this team can put it together the same way that that Browns team did. I mean, this team does have some nice pieces, some nice talent certainly, but I just can't see the connection right now. And hopefully they change my mind. Again, this division is very open. You'll see my division rankings, but that can all change based on just 1 week. So taking a look at the Buccaneers' schedule here, they do start off with the Vikings. That's not the best situation. Go to week 3, they've got the Eagles, another really tough spot. And throughout the season, they're always finding someone that is just going to put a thorn in their side, kind of like the Falcons. But I just see this team having some more wins in between. And that's really all there is to say about the differences between those two teams because it's only a 2 game difference I have between them. I think they can flip flop. I think that we'll get to the Panthers. The Bucks and Panthers can flip flop. It's a really tough division to predict, but the spot I have them at right now is 7-10, third in the division. So now second in the NFC South, I have the Carolina Panthers. They're going 8-9, and I just like the Houston Texans believe in their young quarterback and is his projections in Bryce Young. Of course, these first couple of preseason games against the Jets and Giants, respectively, have not been incredible, but I think he will be, just in his rookie season, serviceable enough to get them over the hump with the strong roster and head coach they have. Frank Reich obviously was a good winning head coach in his time when in Indianapolis when he had a good situation in front of him. The defense would play really well, and the offensive line and certain pieces of that offense were really clicking. It was always just the quarterback position that would cut down the Colts, and unfortunately, it lost Reich his job there. Now that he's in Carolina, he gets to mold a young quarterback and try to bring him up to be the level that all these top quarterbacks are nowadays. And it's certainly just a situation that is much better quarterback wise than it was in Indianapolis with Philip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan. Getting to start somewhere fresh, somewhere new, I think will really benefit both Reich and the Panthers as a whole. Again, like I said, for the Texans, 8-9 can become successful, can become the bottom, but I think they will be definitely in the middle because of the schedule they have. They have a lot of nice, easy opponents here. Chicago, their own division, and it will allow them to stay just teetering enough to a point where you can look at this team. I'm sorry for continuously bringing the parallels to the Texans, but rookie quarterback, new situation. It's kind of the only thing you can do. Both of these teams will really surprise people. Maybe not as, oh wow, the shocking David versus Goliath that they were able to make it so far, but they were able to show so much more than we had expected that it only makes us think that they're going to do better next year and the year after that. Just really setting in stone the projections and how successful these teams will be for the future by just showing this 1 year of real potential. That's why I've got the Carolina Panthers in second place in the NFC South at 8-9. And so lastly for predictions here, for first place in the NFC South, I have the New Orleans Saints. And in all honesty, it's really just because they have the most anticipated, the most expected to be good quarterback situation in the entire division. As I had stated earlier, you have Desmond Ridder for the Falcons. You have Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask for the Buccaneers, and Bryce Young for the Panthers. I can believe that some of them will be really good in their position, and I can believe that some are going to be really poor for their team, but all of that is projection. The man that I know can be very strong and I know will be very good for the New Orleans Saints is Derek Carr. He was successful as a quarterback with the Raiders. Maybe they weren't the most successful team, but he definitely showed that he can be a quarterback to lead a team. Certainly wasn't a game manager or anything like that. The New Orleans Saints also just have a much better roster built around him and at least their quarterback over the other teams in the division. Of course, though, 10-7 is still just about what it takes to make the playoffs. So, as I've said for this entire division and even its AFC counterpart, it's all questionable. The Saints, looking at their schedule, just seem to have it all put together against these teams just a little bit better when I just think of what their team is when comparing them to a team like, let's just say, the Patriots or taking a look, what are some other interesting wins that we have here? The Giants. I just think that what they have put together is stronger, and whether that home field advantage that I'm looking at or what have you, I just believe in my heart of hearts that this team just has that narrowest edge over the rest of its division. But hey, who knows? This can all be, like I said, completely washed away by just week one. But for now, I've got the New Orleans Saints in first place in the NFC South at 10-7. So now for our NFC South recap, I've got the Atlanta Falcons at 5-12, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-10, the Carolina Panthers at 8-9, and the New Orleans Saints winning the division at 10-7. Now we're going to move on to our weekly New York baseball checkup. Now, moving on to our weekly New York baseball check in, we're going to start with the New York Yankees, who, boy, have things only gone downhill more than last week. They have lost quite simply every single game since our last episode here, and it has been ugly. I mean, starting off, they lost their first three against Atlanta. Their first game being the worst one, losing 11-3, but not getting much better as they got shut out in the next two. And they just wrapped up a series with Boston in which they lost all to by losing and having Boston score at least 6 runs with scoring 8 in the first two. This is one of the biggest low points, I mean, for the Yankees that I can remember. I mean, just a couple seasons ago, we were questioning whether or not they were going to be the playoffs that season, and then everything clicked, and, just that Yankee magic, as they were able to at least make the playoffs. They won't be necessarily incredibly successful, but they made the playoffs, something that, like, the Mets couldn't say. But now, yeah, it's kind of running out in terms of that Yankee magic, and we're just going to have to check in next week to see how much more hits the Bronx Bombers are going to have to take. Now, moving on to the Mets, it is better, but it's tough to gauge how much better. On the surface, it is leaps and bounds, as they have won 4 of their last 6, winning 2 straight series, one against the Pittsburgh Pirates and another against the St. Louis Cardinals, winning 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh and 3 out of 4 against St. Louis, but it's really rough coming down the stretch. Some of the teams they got to play, I mean, they got to play Atlanta, and then the Angels are, it's always tough to get a read on them, but then Texas, the Mariners, it's going to be interesting to see how this team fares, but for now they've been on a little bit of a hot streak, just losing it just hours ago against the Cardinals, but this team has looked great at certain points in just this past couple of games, something that I didn't think we'd be able to say this season. Do I think they're great? No. Do I think they'll keep this up? I can hope, but for now we're just gonna have to keep an eye on them. But something's definitely going in the right direction for now, or maybe it's just a measly little hot streak. Who knows? We're gonna move on to our next topic. Alright, so we're back here at the Wheel of Impressions, and we're going to see who we're going to debate against to close out the show. You're going to want to stick around and watch this one because it might just be a disaster. In a good way, but a disaster. Okay, guys, I am so excited for our interview. I mean, I've been a massive fan of this guy and his work for years now. I mean, I got to make sure I'm looking good. Haha! Haha! I think that's him. I think I think I found the place. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. All right. Let's get to work. Mickey, oh my God, I am such a big fan. I'm so glad to finally be meeting you. I mean, just thank you so much for being here. Sorry, kid. We don't necessarily do that around my parts, but it's also not Mickey. We'll go with Mr. Mouse. Uh, all right. Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, Mr. Mouse. Anyway, I had this really fun debate idea for this episode. It is going to be whether or not Disney should really dig deeper into the streaming service game for sports. Obviously, they have a part of ESPN and everything, but should Disney Plus, something like that, should that have some games on it? Should that have more of an aspect of sports that kids can enjoy and really grow up with? And on top of all of the movies and TV shows and originals that they have, it's just something else that maybe a new demographic can really enjoy all on one streaming service instead of having to get all of Hulu's and Disney Plus, that whole bundle thing.
Huh? Well, you just said it yourself, buddy. The the streaming service game is already being won by Disney with ESPN Plus, and I mean, look what we did with the NHL just recently. The big massive success of the Big City Greens show with Cricket Green. We made the Big City Green NHL Classic, and the fans loved it. They absolutely loved it. Huh?
You know what? Yeah, I think I heard something about that, but I mean, I was just thinking maybe something more, not some sort of oddly simulated version of another game. I thought maybe bringing like a sports league onto there, or maybe like getting some more primetime games. Not exactly well, whatever the hell that kind of idea.
What? Come on, man. Primetime games, starting a new sports league. I mean, we're Disney for crying out loud. Sure, we're made of money, but how much easier to throw on something like the Big City Greens NHL Classic? I mean, listen, we can call this a debate all we want, but if you're going to try to question our business decisions, oh, it's not going to be fun for you, Mr. Hostman, and your little podcast. Huh?
No, no, sorry. I mean, Mr. Mouse. I didn't mean any way to offend you. It's a really interesting idea, and I'm sure it could really take off if you try more. It's just I thought maybe you would want to go with something that we already know really works. That a lot of companies have been doing, like Twitch and Amazon, all that kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah, well, just never try to get one over on the old mouse. Haha.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Well, listen. There is a lot that we're doing in terms of sports for ESPN Plus and all these different facets we have. I mean, little old Disney, we just make movies and TV shows. I mean, what do you want us to do? Just make movies about true stories again? Or series like Miracle or Cool Runnings? Haha.
Well, actually, yes, you could do something like that, taking the kind of a documentary biopic kind of idea. I mean, think what they did with HBO and Winning Time, all about the Lakers dynasty and Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and all of that. That was really interesting and something that you guys could really take note of.
Oh, I get it. You're bringing up that winning times of the Lakers dynasty from HBO Max because you want us to get scared, don't you? You want us to get scared. Oh, Disney's not going to fall for that one, and we're not going to get tricked by you again. You're not going to get it on the old mouse. I just told you to stop it.
Right, again. I'm sorry, Mr. Mousy. It is your call entirely. I'm just, again, just trying to spitball some ideas to keep this thing rolling. Again, my bad. It's completely. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you're on thin ice, host man. That's strike two. Huh?
It's just. I mean, that's what they do with ESPN 30 for 30.
What did you just say?
It's like what they do for ESPN 30 for 30.
That's 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 not a bad idea. Huh? I think that could really do be something. I mean, that's really good. I mean, we're already doing it. We kind of know what we're doing, and it would just make so much more if it's on another streaming service that people want to get. Haha. That could be genius. Let me get my guys on the phone.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking of. I was thinking like, kind of the same kind of product that, but people would, they wouldn't notice. I mean, come on. I think I would know as one of these people who just wastes money on these kind of things. I would just completely watch almost the same thing on different things. Come on. I mean, that's how people who follow Disney work, right? I'm really glad you like the idea. I mean,
Yeah. This one,
appreciate.
this one's gonna kill, guys.
Right,
Walt would
right.
be
No, you're right. Yeah.
obsessed
Okay.
if it was
Yeah.
around. I mean, come on, 30 for
You
30
finish that
again.
deal, Mr. Mouse, Mickey. I Whatever. Jeez. I mean, I guess you know what they always say about never meet your heroes. That's just so that's gonna do it for the third episode of the Deep in Sports Thought podcast. Again, I am incredibly happy and grateful that people have enjoyed these first two. And once again, just keep commenting, you know, what you liked, what you disliked, anything. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you'll see the next episode. And that's about it. I'm Chase Caridi, and this has been the Deep in Sports Thought podcast.